Happy Monday!
Yay! It's Monday Vlog Day. Welcome, beautiful Kingdom Warriors.
Yes.
We are really excited to be with you guys today. So our church has been doing this really amazing sermon series on humanity and sexuality, and it's called Beautiful and Dangerous. And we just want to take the next couple weeks and kind of walk through some of the things that are really standing out to us, and hopefully that will generate some dialogue between you guys and us. We are dying to hear more questions and thoughts about what you guys want us to be writing about or researching or vlogging about. We've been praying for you guys. I love looking on the likes list. So and there's likes of people that I know that Ruth doesn't know. And then, there's people that Ruth knows that I don't. So it's been great to kind of just pray over you guys. I try to do that at least once a week. So,
Thanks for being part of our community.
Yay! So back to kind of where we're going. We want to, like I said, kind of just expound on some of the thoughts that are standing out to us. And we're excited to kind of dive into this with you guys. And one of the things that we heard about yesterday was from Dan's wife, our pastor. His name is Dan, and his wife, Lisa. We like to call her pastor, even though that's not technically her title. But she'll always be that to us, right?
Yes, she's the director of family ministries, but she's got pastoral giftings, and her sermon yesterday was just really spot on, amazing, life-changing.
It was. So
we look forward to sharing the audio with you here on our Facebook page once they put it on the church website, northharbor.org.
Yeah. So we encourage you guys, too, to check that out. Obviously, we're stoked that you want to, watch our musings. But we're kind of just taking a few minutes and, just bringing some cool stuff to you guys that God's revealing to us. So, we really want to be able to give that back to you guys. But, again, we don't have, an hour to give you the background of where all this is coming from. So again, listen to Dan's sermons. They're awesome. They're going to give you a great foundation for where human sexuality originates, and
he started from the book by Brene Brown, Daring Greatly, and took her research on shame and vulnerability to jump into a theological study of human sexuality, which has been really powerful.
Yeah, it has been. So, today we're going to just kind of talk about some of the things that stood out to us in Lisa's sermon about female sexuality. But first, I wanted to kind of just set you up with where, we really believe that, the Bible teaches that we were created in the image of God. In Genesis 1, 26 and 27, it talks all about how we are created in God's image, and that's where you have to start. You have to start there to understand that all of humanity is created in an image-bearing likeness.
And his creation is good.
Yeah.
He's pleased with us.
Yep. And it's not good. My husband told me this yesterday. It's not good after they are told to rule and have dominion. They're good just by being created. Because they're created by God, they're good without doing anything at all. So that's really exciting to kind of sit in. So many times I know for myself, and I know for a lot of women, we judge our worth by our performance and by what we do. So it's really important to, start there and remember that exactly what Ruth said, that you're good right now in this moment without doing anything. You're good. I'm good. Ruth's good.
And they wanted this sermon series to generate conversation, first with your spouses, or, if you're single, with a close friend, and that it'll start, as we converse about these things, it puts light onto our shame, and which shame cannot survive in the light. So Becky and I were both sharing with each other, which we won't share with you, about our conversations with our husbands. And so it's working. These sermons are really generating change and healing, and we're excited.
Yeah. So, so in that beginning place, probably for me, the thing that stood out a ton is obviously Anakin Skywalker.
No, I'm Han Solo.
I'm sorry, Han Solo. He definitely stood out. One of the things that really stood out to me for sure was this concept of, two things. The concept that we're a mirror. that we actually, sometimes we think about being an image bearer as reflecting one way, but N.T. Wright really talks about in his book, I don't remember the name of the book, do you?
I don't remember.
But it's, Lisa basically stole it from him, which she totally said in her sermon, so it's awesome, that, we are created as image bearers of the Holy Triune God to not only reflect God's image this way, but it's almost like at an angle where like the world gets reflected to this image, us, this mirror, and that worship from the world gets reflected back up to God. And that, we also reflect like God's image. So it's like a two-way imaging, which is kind of cool to think about because, I don't just exist in this one vein, that what I do matters. It doesn't determine my worth, but it matters because it's showing the world who God is, and that can create and generate worship from the world back to God, which is so cool. I had never really thought about that before, so I loved that. And then she made me look at the story of the woman in the well in a totally new way. If you're not familiar with it, it's John chapter 4, and it's all about the woman at from Samaria that meets Jesus at the well, and how there was just so many different points, and I won't get into it all because again that's pretty much where she sits in the sermon. So but one thing she talked about was Jesus doesn't just speak to her physical issue. He actually has her bring what she feels the deepest shame about out physically. She has in her mind that he keeps talking about this living water he's going to give her as something physical, but then he draws it out of her that, the water he wants to give her is spiritual. And that in turn spurs her into this place of Jesus calling out her sin. He full on just calls it out and is like, I know that you've been married 5 times. He just pulls it out there. And, she then has her shame brought into the light. That darkness is pierced with the light of Christ because he just calls it right out and she confesses right up to it. And then ends up going and telling her entire village about what it means to, have Jesus give us living water. She's pretty much the first evangelist that goes and shares Christ to the Samaritans. It's pretty powerful when we let the light of Christ pierce our darkness. And he asks us to bring a voice to our shame. And Brene Brown talks about that, like you said, that our shame has so much power in silence, that's where it gets its power from. And we can't be free from it until we start talking about it. And that's exactly what Jesus does. He full on just calls it out and shares that with her. So those were 2 huge things that I was like, whoa, so cool. Yeah, loved it.
Ben wants to say hi.
Hi.
Now beat it.
No.
Lisa also talked about
Where to go?
how sex is, she did a really cool play on words. She did sex, symbol, body image, 2 huge concepts of our worth in our American culture. And she showed how the Bible treats sex and body as sex equals symbol.
Oh. Why?
And body equals image. Sex is a symbol that describes the intimacy that God has in the Trinity and the intimacy that he wants to share with us in relationship. And our body is an image reflecting God's glory to those around us. And so you got to stop thinking of sex symbol and body image in the context of our culture and redefine the terms in the context of the Bible.
Yeah.
And she was talking about, the beauty of sex. She had a great list of C-letter words. Number 1 was communication. I think community, celebration, and we were both drawing a blank on the other ones.
I know. She'll just have to fill you in when we interview her.
Versus, though, what we really liked was then she compared that to how we treat sex in our culture as consumers. And I had just been having a conversation recently about how I think Zoe was talking about Wendell Berry's book, which now something about a wound. Because he was talking about how racism was birthed in consumerism and how we didn't take care of the land, but how we were, I think that consumerism breeds a lot of dehumanization.
Yeah.
Towards ourselves, towards others, in the way that we treat nature and treat other human beings.
Yeah, it's a huge part of, we were talking about too, with the whole sex symbol, body image thing, so many times, when we're acting out, like, because that's what kind of she means, right? That with the symbol part of the sex equals symbol, that it's a symbol of, like you said, reflecting a glory of God. It's not just us being an object, which the culture wants to tell you a sex symbol is somebody that is an object to be consumed, right? I mean, isn't that the idea?
Yeah.
So, and what happens is when we just consume something versus use it in an appropriate way, it's hard to think through what that means to how to use something without dehumanizing it.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do we do that? Right. I mean,
and it leads to brokenness. And I think,
Right.
A lot of women, there's such a high percentage of abuse. People are really wounded from that whole consumerism instead of, celebration and communication and communion. And
yeah. That,
the glory is ripped out of the whole situation. And
Yeah, and the love. I mean, the love that we're meant to taste is poisoned with, performance and this need to find our worth in how we perform and in what we do. It's very dehumanizing for sure. Oh, cat throw up. Welcome to my world. Yeah, we'll clean that up in just a second, Abby. Thanks, girl. So, I mean, it's huge, I think, what we're talking about, as Easter is approaching and, we're all growing towards wanting to celebrate, our freedom in Christ. It's important to not forget that, there are so many people that are suffering. There are people that are suffering because of the results of the objectification of men and the objectification of women. Specifically in regards to sexuality. I mean, so many marriages are just in shambles because even in the church, we still have this idea that sex is something to perform and to do well. It's still something that is separate from our bodies somehow, that we can somehow separate it. And we can't. And that's what makes sexuality such a huge issue, is that, we can't separate the two. You can't just have sex and call that something physical. Something spiritual happens, whether you believe it or not. It does. And it's evidenced by, like what Ruth said, with the growing numbers of, divorce and rape. And the more that we dehumanize something, the more we feel like we can do whatever we want to it and with it. And it's happening younger and younger and more and more frequently. And, we need to speak out. We need to speak out against, women being objectified in advertising, allowing ourselves to do that, and doing it to each other in our words.
Our attitudes, the things that we keep to ourselves, but infect others anyways.
Yeah, things like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, Becky shaved her head.
You should turn around. It looks awesome.
She's crazy.
Get the other side. Isn't that cool? She looks beautiful.
She's nuts. What is wrong with her? She's such a attention-grabbing biatch.
She's beautiful.
Right? But that's who I am. Who I am as an artist. Like, I love to do weird and cool things with my hair and clothes and jewelry. And, it's not because I want to grab attention or whatever, but we're so quick. I mean, I'm not saying I don't do that. I mean, my whole job is to pretty much judge people 24/7 in an appropriate way. But, where we're saying, hey, this is what, I think would look good on you, blah, blah, blah.
I read Brene Brown's Daring Greatly in the fall, and I decided I was going to start being kind to myself in the way I was talking to myself, because I think that's what seems like the biggest struggle that a lot of women have, is just in the way that they're speaking to themselves.
Yeah.
And we are worthy of love. We
Yes.
are loved.
Yep.
God loves us unconditionally. He looks at his creation, Lisa said the masterpiece of his creation, and sees a beautiful thing, and yet we look in the mirror and we see trash, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we have to start that. We have to start changing the dialogue, changing our inner being, by letting God change us. Guys, carve out time to spend with God. Carve out time, We're really committing to try to do that, and in a way where we're allowing God to speak to us and feed our souls through his word, and not just feel like it's one more thing we have to perform well or do right, because it's not about the performance. It's about just being in the presence of God and being loved by him and being healed by him, in every part of who we are, including our sexuality. If you guys have any things that you want prayer for, anything you want to share with us, we'd love to have that be a part of what we do this week. And we know that there's a lot of brokenness. Statistics tell us that, I think, what was it, like 40% of women have experienced unwanted.
By 20, and then it goes, or by
Yeah.
a certain age, Lisa was saying, in the
Yeah.
teens, I think, and then that percentage goes up over time.
Yeah, that they've experienced unwanted
And even within
sexual
marriage,
encounters.
it happens.
Absolutely. So we know that this is a touchy subject. We know it's a hard subject. That's why we just want to, create a space for you guys to ask your questions, private message us, and we will be more than happy to, do our best to shed some light into your, to the darkness, and, give voice to that shame, guys. If you're struggling with, addiction, if you're struggling with, an abusive relationship, whatever it is that, is dehumanizing you, we want to give a voice to that for you guys, to help you be free, so you can have that living water that, Jesus talks about in John 4, because I want that for my life and my friends. So we will be back next week, chatting some more.
Sounds good.
Hopefully we'll get Lisa's sermon notes so we can just steal from that.
Yeah,
Because now
we've
we've talked about what we really loved, and now we'd like to pull apart some stuff based off of you guys' responses.
and we're going to interview her soon.
Get her brain.
Good times.
It'll be awesome. All right, everybody, have a great week.
Love you.